Hey guys, tonight we embark on a journey that will challenge your perceptions of history, spirituality, and perhaps even your own endurance. Imagine the oppressive heat of colonial-era Manila, the air thick with the scent of spices and damp earth, the distant clang of church bells mingling with the rhythmic creak of ox carts. You're there, now, not a passive observer, but a soul adrift in a vibrant, volatile tapestry of cultures colliding. The very ground beneath your feet vibrates with a spiritual hum, an ancient energy thrumming beneath the veneer of Spanish imperial might. You probably won't survive this, not in the comfortable, detached way you usually consume stories. This is visceral, this is immersive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up for it, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always fascinating to see where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes, though you don't remember closing them. The world around you is no longer the familiar hum of your modern existence, but a cacophony of foreign sounds and sensations. The light is diffused, a hazy glow filtering through the narrow, high windows of what appears to be a stone-walled room. The air is heavy, humid, carrying the distinct scent of damp earth, burning charcoal, and something floral, like jasmine. Outside, you hear the distant, insistent tolling of a church bell, a deep, resonant sound that seems to echo through the very marrow of your bones. It's not a gentle summons, but a commanding declaration asserting its dominion over the burgeoning day. You stir the rough texture of a woven mat beneath you, and slowly, your senses begin to coalesce the fragmented details of your new reality. The room is sparsely furnished. A simple wooden table, a single chair, and a crucifix hanging on the whitewashed wall are the only discernible objects. Dust motes dance in the slanting light, illuminated by the streaks that penetrate the gloom. You push yourself up, your limbs feeling surprisingly heavy, and move towards the window. Peering out, you are met with a scene that is both alien and strangely compelling. The streets below are a chaotic ballad of activity. Indigenous Filipinos, clad in simple tunics and trousers, navigate the crowded thoroughfares alongside Spanish friars in their habits, their faces often stern, their gazes sweeping over the populace. Chinese merchants, easily identifiable by their queues and distinctive silk garments, haggle over goods displayed on makeshift stalls. Their voices are rapid, fire staccato of unfamiliar syllables. The sheer density of humanity, the vibrant colors of their clothing, the clamor of their voices, it's an assault on your senses, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of the room you've just left. You notice the architecture immediately grand. Imposing stone buildings with red-tiled roofs, their facades weathered by sun and rain. These are the hallmarks of colonial power, erected with the labor of a subjugated people, designed to assert dominance and permanence. Yet, beneath this veneer of Spanish authority, you sense something else. Something older, more subtle. It's a feeling, rather than a distinct observation. A kind of hum that vibrates beneath the surface of the organized chaos. It's in the way a local woman pauses to touch a small, intricately carved wooden figure before hurrying on her way. A gesture of reverence that seems distinct from the crosses and saints adorning the churches. It's in the fleeting glance exchanged between two indigenous men, a shared understanding that passes without a word, a silent resistance perhaps, or merely a continuation of their own enduring traditions. The sounds, too, tell a story. While the church bells dominate, there are other, softer tones. The distant strains of a bamboo flute, the rhythmic pounding of pestle on mortar from an unseen kitchen, the gentle lapping of water from what must be the bay, a faint salty tang on the humid air. These are the sounds of a life that predates the arrival of the galleons, sounds that stubbornly persist despite the imposition of a new culture. You feel a strange sense of being caught between two worlds, the rigid structure of the colonizers and the fluid, organic rhythms of the colonized. Your own presence here feels anomalous, a thread pulled from another time, woven into a fabric that was never meant to include it. As you stand by the window, observing, you become aware of a subtle shift within yourself. The initial shock of disorientation begins to recede, replaced by a nascent curiosity. The details, once overwhelming, now invite closer inspection. You notice the intricate patterns woven into the fabric of a woman's skirt, the delicate craftsmanship of a silver pendant worn by a passing friar, the wary lines etched on the face of a street vendor. Each element, no matter how small, contributes to the grand narrative unfolding before you. You begin to understand that this is not merely a historical tableau, but a living, breathing entity, pulsating with its own internal dynamics, its own hidden currents. The sun climbs higher, and the intensity of the light increases, casting sharp shadows across the dusty streets. The heat becomes more oppressive, clinging to your skin, making every movement an effort. You retreat from the window, seeking the relative coolness of the room, and find yourself drawn to the small, unadorned crucifix on the wall. It's a simple carving, devoid of the ornate embellishments you might expect from European artistry. The figure of Christ is lean, almost gaunt, with an expression of quiet suffering. Yet, there's a certain universality to it, a starkness that transcends its specific religious context. It seems to embody the very essence of human struggle, a symbol that could resonate with anyone, regardless of their faith or origin. As you gaze at it, you feel a faint tremor, not of fear, but of anticipation. You are here, in this place, at this time, for a reason. The precise nature of that reason remains elusive, a puzzle with many missing pieces. But the sensation of being precisely where you are meant to be, despite the profound strangeness of it all, is undeniable. The colonial-era Philippines, a crossroads of empires and cultures, a melting pot of beliefs and traditions, is now your temporary home. And as the day wears on, and the sounds of the bustling city ebb and flow, you understand that this is just the beginning. The subtle spiritual currents you sense beneath the Spanish rule are not merely background noise. They are the very essence of the path you are about to tread. The sun beats down with relentless intensity, transforming the dusty streets into shimmering heat haze. You retreat further into the shadows of the colonial buildings, seeking respite from the oppressive warmth. Yet, even in the relative coolness of the arcade, you can feel the pulse of the city, a vibrant, chaotic rhythm that seems to defy the rigid order imposed by the Spanish. It's in the periphery of your vision, in the subtle movements and unspoken communications of the indigenous people, that you begin to truly discern the echoes of their ancient beliefs, beliefs that predate the arrival of the galleons by centuries. You see a woman, her face deeply lined by sun and time, pause before a gnarled, ancient tree at the edge of the marketplace. She doesn't genuflect or cross herself, but rather places a small offering of rice and a few plucked blossoms at its base. Her movements are slow, deliberate, infused with a reverence that is distinct from the structured piety you've witnessed in the churches. This isn't an act for public display, it's a private communion, a quiet acknowledgement of a living presence within the tree itself. You recall snippets of information from your own time about animism, the belief that spirits inhabit natural objects and phenomena, and you recognize this gesture as a direct manifestation of that ancient worldview. The tree, for her, is not merely wood and leaves, but a repository of unseen power, a sentinel that has witnessed countless generations. Later, as you wander through a less developed part of the city, where the grand stone buildings give way to simpler nipper huts on stilts, you observe children playing near a small stream. Their laughter is carefree, but occasionally, one of them will stop, their gaze fixed on a particular rock or a ripple in the water, as if discerning a hidden pattern or a fleeting presence. You notice a father gently cautioning his son not to disturb a certain cluster of bamboo, speaking in hushed tones about the dwelling place. It's not a command born of superstition, but a lesson in respect, an ingrained understanding that the natural world is not merely a resource to be exploited, but a realm teeming with unseen inhabitants, with beings that demand consideration. These are not grand rituals performed in temples, but everyday interactions, subtle acknowledgements woven into the fabric of their lives, reminders that the world is alive, imbued with spirit. The friars, with their austere black habits and watchful eyes, patrol the streets, their presence a constant reminder of the new spiritual order. They preach sermons from pulpits adorned with gilded saints, their voices echoing through the plazas, declaring the supremacy of the one true God. They build grand churches that dwarf the humble dwellings of the locals, their towering spires reaching towards the heavens, symbolizing the ascendancy of their faith. Yet, you notice a subtle disconnect. While many Filipinos attend Mass, their face is often a mixture of solemnity and deference. There's an undercurrent of something else, a quiet retention of their own ways. The way they hold their rosaries, for instance, sometimes seems to mirror the way they might hold an amulet, a blending of the new form with an older, ingrained understanding of protective power. You overhear fragments of conversations, whispers exchanged in the marketplaces, stories shared around cooking fires, tales of Diwata, nature spirits dwelling in forests and mountains, of Anito, ancestral spirits who guide and protect, of Encanto, elemental beings who reside in the rivers and trees. These aren't spoken of as abstract concepts, but as living realities, forces that can influence harvests, bring good fortune, or even cause misfortune if disrespected. The Spanish may have introduced their saints and their angels, but the ancient pantheon of the land continues to hold sway in the hearts and minds of the people. It's a resilient faith, one that has deep roots in the very soil of the islands, a faith that refuses to be entirely supplanted by the foreign imposition. This blend is fascinating to witness. You see a crucifix hanging next to a small, hand-carved wooden figure of a local deity in a fisherman's hut. A family might attend morning mass, then later offer prayers and food to the spirits of their ancestors before planting their crops. The new faith has been layered upon the old, sometimes merging, sometimes coexisting, creating a unique spiritual landscape. It's not a complete conversion, but rather an assimilation, where elements of the new are absorbed and reinterpreted through the lens of the deeply ingrained animistic worldview. The indigenous people, with their profound connection to the land and its unseen forces, find ways to integrate the foreign religion into their existing spiritual framework, making it their own. You realize that this resilience isn't born of defiance, but of a deep-seated understanding of their world. For generations, their lives have been intertwined with the rhythms of nature, with the ebb and flow of the seasons, with the perceived presence of spirits in every natural phenomenon. To abandon these beliefs entirely would be to sever a fundamental connection to their very existence. The Spanish friars, with their rigid doctrines and singular focus, struggle to fully comprehend this fluidity, this inherent pluralism in the indigenous spiritual landscape. They see paganism where the locals see a continuum of sacred presence. As the day begins to wane, and the golden light of dusk bathes the city in a soft glow, you find yourself sitting by the bay, watching the small fishing boats bobbing on the water. The air is cooler now, carrying the salty scent of the sea and the faint aroma of cooking fires. You reflect on what you've observed, the subtle acts of reverence, the whispered stories, the quiet resilience of a people holding on to their ancient ways amidst the pervasive presence of a new, conquering faith. The indigenous animistic beliefs, far from being extinguished, have simply receded into the shadows of vital, living undercurrents subtly influencing the new colonial order, waiting for moments to surface and reveal their enduring power. The next morning dawns with a familiar intensity, the humid air already clinging to your skin. The incessant tolling of the church bells is the soundtrack to your day, a rhythmic, authoritative declaration that marks the hours. You find yourself increasingly aware of the pervasive presence of the Augustinian friars. They are everywhere, walking through the streets, their dark habits a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of the market. Overseeing construction projects, their stern faces reflecting an unwavering resolve, and, most notably, presiding over the grand ceremonies in the ornate churches, their gaze, you realize, is not just one of spiritual guidance, but also of constant vigilance, a watchful eye extended over every aspect of life in this colonial outpost. You observe them closely. They move with an air of self-importance, a palpable sense of their divine mission. Their sermons, delivered with fervent passion, thunder against what they perceive as the superstitions and idolatry of the native population. From the periphery, you catch phrases like heathen practices and salvation of souls, words that paint a clear picture of their singular objective: to eradicate the ancient beliefs and firmly implant Catholicism. Their mission is not merely evangelism. It is cultural transformation, a wholesale reordering of the spiritual and social landscape. Their zeal is understandable, given the historical context. They are part of a massive undertaking, the spiritual arm of the Spanish Empire, tasked with bringing the light of Christ to newly discovered lands. Yet you sense a rigidity in their approach, a fundamental inability or unwillingness to truly comprehend the indigenous worldview. For them, there is only one truth, one path to salvation, and any deviation is seen as a dangerous heresy. This unyielding stance creates a palpable tension in the air, a silent struggle between the imposed dogma and the resilient, deeply rooted spiritual traditions of the islands. You witness instances of this tension firsthand. One afternoon, you see a friar publicly admonishing a group of men for carrying small, carved wooden figures. His voice is sharp, his gestures emphatic as he confiscates the objects and throws them onto a small, smoldering fire. The men's faces are impassive, betraying little emotion, but in their eyes, you detect a flicker of something, not defiance, perhaps, but a deep-seated wariness, a resigned acceptance of a power they cannot openly challenge. This act, small as it may seem, is a microcosm of the larger colonial project, the systematic dismantling of indigenous spiritual practices, deemed pagan and therefore dangerous, to be replaced by the true faith. The friar's watchful eye extends beyond overt paganism. They are wary of any foreign philosophies, any ideas that might challenge the monolithic authority of the church and the crown. The intellectual landscape of the colonial Philippines is tightly controlled. Books are censored, ideas are scrutinized, and deviation from orthodox teachings is swiftly suppressed. This creates an atmosphere where intellectual curiosity, especially regarding non-European thought, is viewed with suspicion. For them, the introduction of Eastern philosophies, such as Zen, would be anathema, a direct threat to the spiritual purity and political stability they strive to maintain. You learn that they have established schools and seminaries, not just to educate future priests, but also to indoctrinate the local populace. Children are taught catechism, hymns, and the stories of the saints. The goal is to shape minds from a young age, to cultivate a generation that views the world through a purely Catholic lens. Yet, even within these institutions, you notice subtle fissures. Some students, while outwardly compliant, exhibit a quiet, contemplative demeanor, a focus on inner stillness that seems to transcend the rote memorization of prayers. It's a fleeting observation, but it plants a seed of curiosity within you. The friar's presence also extends to the very structure of the settlements. Churches are built in the heart of every town, towering over the surrounding dwellings, their bells marking the passage of time and calling the faithful to worship. The convento, the friar's residence, is often adjacent to the church, a formidable structure symbolizing their temporal as well as spiritual power. They are the arbiters of morality, the confidantes of the local elites, and often the de facto administrators in many areas. Their influence is pervasive, deeply woven into the fabric of daily life. As you spend more time observing, you begin to understand the complex position of the friars. They are not simply villains. Many are genuinely committed to what they believe is the salvation of souls. They endure hardship, disease, and isolation, driven by a profound sense of duty. Yet, their unwavering conviction often blinds them to the richness and depth of the cultures they seek to transform. Their worldview is insular, their understanding of spirituality narrow, making them inherently wary of foreign philosophies that fall outside the purview of their established doctrine. The air around you feels charged with this unspoken conflict, the vibrant, chaotic energy of the local culture, with its deep roots in animism and a profound connection to the land, constantly pushes against the rigid boundaries set by the Spanish friars. You can almost feel the invisible lines of demarcation, the spiritual battlegrounds where ancient ways meet new dogmas. And as you navigate this world, you understand that any exploration of Eastern thought, particularly something as subtle and internally focused as Zen, would have to occur in the shadows, far from the vigilant and often unforgiving gaze of the Augustinian order. The stage is set for a quiet, almost imperceptible clash of spiritual worlds. The relentless heat of the day continues its oppressive embrace. But as you move through the winding streets, a different kind of energy begins to assert itself. The clamor of Spanish and indigenous tongues still fills the air, but increasingly, you hear the sharp, distinct sounds of Chinese dialects. The scent of cooking oil and unfamiliar spices mingles with the more familiar aromas of the marketplace. This is where you begin to encounter the Chinese merchants, their presence a vibrant thread woven into the already complex tapestry of colonial Manila. You see them everywhere. In the bustling Parian, the designated ghetto outside the city walls, where most Chinese residents are compelled to live. They operate their shops with an efficiency that borders on a frenzy. Their stalls overflow with a dizzying array of goods, delicate silks, woven with intricate patterns, gleaming porcelain bowls, aromatic teas, finely carved wooden furniture, and even intricate works of art. Their faces are often unreadable, a blend of shrewdness and quiet determination, as they haggle with local Filipinos and Spanish officials alike. Their presence here is not new. Long before the Spanish galleons arrived, Chinese traders had established vibrant commercial links with the islands. They were the intermediaries, the bridge between Southeast Asia and the vast empire to the north. They brought not just goods, but also ideas, technologies, and even spiritual practices, though these often remained hidden beneath the surface of commerce. The Spanish, while recognizing their economic necessity, viewed them with suspicion, regulating their movements and imposing heavy taxes. Yet, the Chinese, with their deep mercantile tradition, found ways to thrive, carving out their own niche within the colonial structure. As you observe them, you notice the subtleties. While they engage in brisk trade and seem solely focused on profit, there's an underlying order, a quiet discipline in their movements. You see a merchant, after a heated negotiation, take a moment to meticulously arrange his wares, his hands moving with a practiced grace that seems almost meditative. You notice others, during a lull in business, close their eyes for a brief moment, their breathing even and deep. A fleeting glimpse of inner stillness amidst the surrounding chaos. These aren't overt displays of religiosity, but quiet habits, perhaps born of a tradition that values contemplation alongside industry. The sheer volume of goods they bring hints at ancient Eastern connections that stretch far beyond the immediate confines of the Philippines. The silk, for example, is not merely fabric. It is a tangible link to a civilization steeped in centuries of philosophical and spiritual development. The porcelain, with its exquisite artistry, speaks of a culture where beauty and craftsmanship are deeply intertwined with a sophisticated aesthetic. You realize that these merchants are not just conduits for material wealth. They are inadvertent carriers of cultural and intellectual currents that have flowed across the Asian continent for millennia. You might overhear snippets of conversation, not just about prices and quality, but perhaps a philosophical adage shared in a moment of quiet reflection, or a reference to a historical figure from a distant land. While their primary language is commerce, the very act of their trade, the continuous movement of goods and people across vast distances, creates an undeniable conduit for the exchange of ideas. The Silk Road, a network of trade routes that had facilitated the flow of goods and knowledge between East and West for centuries, now finds its maritime extension reaching these shores. It's through these channels, however indirect, that the whispers of Zen and other Eastern philosophies might have arrived. Not through grand missionary efforts or formal teachings, but through the quiet practices of individuals, through the patterns on a ceramic bowl, through the stories told by travelers, through the very fabric of the goods exchanged. A merchant might carry a small, personal scroll with a Buddhist teaching, or a craftsman might imbue his work with a sense of emptiness and form, concepts deeply rooted in Zen. These influences would be subtle, almost imperceptible to the watchful eyes of the friars, blended seamlessly into the daily rhythm of life and trade. The Chinese community, being largely self-sufficient and often viewed with suspicion by the Spanish, developed its own internal networks and cultural spaces. Within these enclaves, away from the direct scrutiny of the colonial authorities, older traditions could be maintained. Practices that might appear innocuous on the surface, but held deeper spiritual significance. A quiet tea ceremony, a moment of calligraphy, or simply sitting in silent contemplation could be acts of cultural preservation as much as personal practice. As the afternoon sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the Parian, you sense the dual nature of the Chinese presence. On one hand, they are driven by the pragmatic demands of trade, contributing significantly to the colonial economy. On the other, they are unwitting, or perhaps even deliberate, carriers of a profound cultural legacy, extending the reach of ancient Eastern thought to this distant archipelago. Their existence, seemingly confined to the realm of commerce, subtly reinforces the ancient Eastern connections, hinting at the potential for these deeper philosophical currents to find a foothold, however tenuous, in this new world. The stage is being set, quietly and almost imperceptibly, for a profound meeting of East and West. Far from the watchful eyes of the dominant powers, the days blur into a rhythm of observation and subtle sensory immersion. You've become accustomed to the clamor of the streets, the oppressive humidity, and the pervasive scent of trade and human endeavor. The grand, imposing structures of the Spanish dominion stand as unyielding monuments to their power, yet beneath their shadows, the older currents of animism persist, and the relentless hum of Chinese commerce underscores ancient connections. It is in this intricate interplay, amidst the mundane and the magnificent, that you suddenly experience a fleeting moment, a glimpse of what you can only describe as a first Zen glimmer. You are drawn one afternoon to a quiet courtyard. Tucked away behind a bustling sari store, a small shop overflowing with an assortment of goods. The air here is noticeably cooler, the sounds of the street muted by the high walls. In the center of the courtyard, an old woman sits on a low stool, meticulously mending a fishing net. Her back is straight, her movements economical and precise. Her hands, gnarled with age and labor, work the twine with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Each knot she ties, each pull of the thread, is executed with complete focus, her gaze fixed on the task, her breath slow and steady. She seems entirely absorbed, oblivious to the world beyond her immediate task. The sun, filtering through a trellis of climbing vines, casts dappled shadows across her face, highlighting the lines of concentration around her eyes. There's no tension in her posture, no hurriedness in her actions. It's as if time itself has slowed, or perhaps for her, it has ceased to exist in the conventional sense. Her concentration is absolute. a profound engagement with the present moment. You stand there watching, transfixed. There's an unexpected stillness emanating from her, a quality of being that transcends the simple act of mending a net. It's not a religious ritual, not a formal meditation. It's merely a woman at work, yet the depth of her presence, her complete absorption, resonates with something you recognize from your understanding of Zen. The idea of Mushin, a mind without mind, or Zazen in action, where the activity itself becomes the meditation, springs to mind. She embodies it effortlessly, unconsciously. This isn't a monk in a temple or a philosopher delivering a discourse. It's an ordinary individual performing an ordinary task, yet infusing it with an extraordinary level of mindfulness. The chaotic energy of the colonial setting, with its political tensions, religious fervor, and commercial bustle, seems to simply fall away in her immediate vicinity. For a few moments, the courtyard becomes an oasis of calm, a silent testament to the power of focused attention. Later that same day, as you are navigating a crowded alleyway, a street vendor calls out to you, attempting to sell you a carved wooden bird. You politely decline, but as you turn to leave, you notice the vendor's apprentice, a young boy no older than 10, carefully arranging a display of fruits. His small hands move with an unexpected delicacy, aligning each mango, each papaya, with a precise care that seems disproportionate to the simplicity of the task. His brow is furrowed in concentration, and his breath is almost imperceptibly slow, a silent focus in the midst of the incessant chatter and hurried footsteps. He, too, is completely present, his small world momentarily reduced to the geometry of ripe fruit. These are not grand revelations, but subtle instances, almost imperceptible nuances in the fabric of daily life. They are moments of profound stillness, arising from the heart of everyday activity. In a world characterized by imposition and outward displays of power, these quiet acts of mindfulness represent an internal sanctuary, a form of spiritual resilience that requires no grand pronouncements or official recognition. They are a fleeting moment of Zen, like calm in an unexpected colonial setting. The significance of these observations lies in their unexpected nature. In an environment dominated by the dogmatic pronouncements of the friars and the material pursuits of merchants, such moments offer a contrasting vision of spirituality. It's a spirituality not based on doctrine or ritual, but on presence, on the deep engagement with the here and now. It suggests that even in a place where foreign philosophies are viewed with suspicion, the essence of such practices can manifest organically, perhaps through the simple wisdom of everyday people. You realize that Zen, in its most fundamental form, is not confined to specific schools or lineages. It is a way of being, an approach to life that can arise wherever there is genuine attentiveness and a willingness to simply be with what is. In the colonial Philippines, where external control is paramount, these internal manifestations of stillness are particularly poignant. They represent a subtle form of resistance, a quiet reclaiming of inner space that remains impervious to external pressures. As the day ends, and the sounds of the city begin to soften, you carry with you the images of the old woman and the young boy. Their quiet absorption has left an indelible impression. It is a powerful reminder that spiritual depth can be found not just in grand pronouncements or elaborate rituals, but in the most ordinary of actions, performed with a clear and present mind. This first glimmer of Zen, unexpected and unbidden, hints at deeper currents flowing beneath the surface of colonial life, waiting to be discovered. The brief, luminous moments of Zen, like calm you've witnessed, have sparked a deeper yearning within you. The oppressive weight of colonial life, the constant surveillance of the friars, and the relentless pursuit of commerce now feel less consuming, overshadowed by the subtle hum of something profound. You find yourself seeking out quieter corners of the city, drawn by an invisible thread, a premonition that there's more to uncover than meets the eye. Your senses are now attuned, not just to the external world, but to the whispers of hidden knowledge, to the potential for a hidden temple to exist within this complex cultural landscape. One sweltering afternoon, you follow a narrow, unpaved path that veers off from a bustling market street. The path is barely discernible, winding between the backs of ramshackle dwellings and overgrown foliage. The cacophony of the market slowly fades behind you, replaced by the chirping of unseen insects and the rustling of leaves. The air grows heavier, more humid, laden with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation. It feels as though you are stepping away from the established world, entering a liminal space. Suddenly, the path opens onto a small, secluded clearing, nestled amidst a cluster of ancient mango trees. Almost swallowed by the dense greenery, stands a structure that initially appears to be just another humble dwelling. It's built of rough, hewn wood and nipa palm, its roof sagging slightly, its walls weathered by years of sun and rain. But as you draw closer, you notice details that distinguish it. There's a subtle, almost imperceptible curve to the roofline, reminiscent of traditional Chinese architecture. The wooden door, though simple, has an intricate carving, faded with time but still hinting at a deeper symbolism. And above the doorway, a faded strip of red cloth bears characters that you instinctively recognize as Chinese. Though you can't decipher their meaning, a profound silence hangs in the air around the structure. A silence that is not merely the absence of noise, but a palpable presence, a stillness that seems to absorb all sound. You feel a familiar resonance, a deeper version of the calm you experienced from the old woman mending the net. This isn't a Catholic church, nor is it a typical animist shrine. This feels different, imbued with an older, more refined spiritual energy. This, you realize with a jolt of recognition, is it? This is where ancient practices are secretly maintained. You push the door open, slowly, cautiously. The interior is dim, illuminated by a single, flickering oil lamp placed on a low altar. The air is cool and still, carrying a faint scent of incense and old wood. There are no grand statues of saints or ornate crucifixes. Instead, the altar holds a simple wooden Buddha figure, unadorned and serene, its gaze directed inwards. Before it are offerings of fresh fruit and a small, delicate ceramic bowl filled with water. The room is sparsely furnished, almost minimalist. There are several woven mats laid out on the floor, indicating spaces for sitting. Along one wall, a shelf holds a few scrolls, their silk ties faded, their contents unknown to you. The walls themselves are bare, save for a single calligraphy hanging, its characters fluid and graceful, radiating an almost tangible sense of peace. The entire space exudes a quiet dignity, a sense of intentionality and deep purpose. You notice a figure sitting on one of the mats, his back to you. He is old, his shoulders slightly stooped, his hair a wispy white. He wears simple, unbleached cotton robes. His posture is erect yet relaxed, his hands resting gently in his lap, palms facing upwards. He is utterly still, his breathing so shallow and regular that you can barely perceive it. He is undoubtedly in deep meditation. You stand quietly for a long moment, reluctant to disturb the profound tranquility of the space. The man's presence is magnetic, drawing you deeper into the stillness. You feel the clamor of the outside world. The anxieties of your own displacement begin to recede. Here in this hidden sanctuary, time seems to lose its grip. The centuries of colonial rule, the clash of cultures, the economic struggles, all seem to dissolve into the quiet hum of the present moment. This is a sanctuary, a clandestine space where the ancient wisdom of the East has been preserved, hidden from the watchful eyes of the Spanish authorities. It's a testament to resilience, to the quiet determination of those who refused to let their spiritual heritage be extinguished. The Chinese merchants, with their vast networks and subtle influence, likely played a role in its establishment and maintenance. Perhaps it serves as a place for their community, or perhaps it draws a more diverse group of seekers, those who feel an innate resonance with its teachings. As the old man slowly shifts, breaking his meditation, you feel a gentle invitation, not spoken aloud, but conveyed through the very atmosphere of the temple. This is not just a place of quiet contemplation, it is a living repository of knowledge, a space where the ancient practices are secretly maintained, allowing the flow of Eastern wisdom to persist even in the heart of colonial rule. The discovery of this hidden temple is more than just finding a physical location. It is the uncovering of a spiritual lineage, a quiet continuation of a path that offers a different kind of liberation, one that begins within. The next step, you intuitively know, is to learn from those who guard its flame. The air within the hidden temple is cooler than the sweltering outside world, a balm to your senses. The old man who had been meditating slowly rises, his movements unhurried, graceful despite his age. He turns to face you, and his eyes, though ancient, hold a remarkable clarity and depth. There is no surprise in them, no alarm, only a quiet acknowledgement of your presence. It's as if he had been expecting you all along, as if your discovery of this secluded sanctuary was not a chance encounter, but an inevitable step on a predetermined path. He does not speak, but inclines his head slightly, a gesture that is both welcoming and deeply respectful. You feel an unspoken invitation, a silent question hanging in the air. This is not a place for idle chatter or lengthy explanations. Communication here seems to exist on a different plane. Through shared silence and subtle understanding, you respond by mirroring his posture, inclining your own head, a silent plea for knowledge, for guidance. He gestures towards one of the woven mats on the floor, indicating that you should sit. You settle onto the mat, feeling the rough texture beneath you, and arrange yourself in a posture that feels both comfortable and respectful. The old man resumes his own position on his mat, facing the simple Buddha figure on the altar. He closes his eyes once more, and the profound stillness that had filled the space during his meditation returns, enveloping you both. This is your master's invitation, unspoken yet undeniable. It's an invitation not to a formal class or a series of lectures, but to an experience, a journey into the depths of your own being. He doesn't offer words of welcome or promises of enlightenment. He simply is, his presence a living embodiment of the very teachings he is about to impart. This direct, unmediated transmission of wisdom, often through shared silence and action, is a hallmark of Zen. You sit, trying to emulate his stillness, to quiet the incessant chatter of your own mind. The sounds from outside, the distant shouts of vendors, the clatter of horse-drawn carts seem impossibly far away, muffled by the profound quiet within the temple walls. You become aware of your own breath, the subtle rise and fall of your chest, the gentle rhythm that anchors you to the present moment. This is your first lesson, without a single word being spoken, after a long, indeterminate period. The old man opens his eyes. He looks at you, and this time there is a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. He finally speaks, his voice a soft, gravelly murmur, surprisingly clear despite its quietness. His Chinese accent is pronounced, yet his words, when translated by some internal mechanism within you, are simple and direct. You seek something. Here we seek nothing, but in seeking nothing, perhaps you will find everything. His words resonate deeply, challenging the very notion of purpose that has guided your journey thus far. You came seeking answers, knowledge, a specific philosophy. He tells you to seek nothing. It's a paradox, a cone in itself, designed to short-circuit the logical mind and open a different avenue of understanding. He then speaks of the challenges of their existence, how this temple, this way of life, must remain hidden from the outside world. He alludes to the reclusive master he is and the need for discretion. The Spanish friars, with their rigid doctrines, would never tolerate such practices. He speaks of the necessity of cultivating an inner sanctuary, a place of peace that no external force can penetrate. This, he implies, is not just a spiritual path, but a form of quiet resilience, a way to maintain spiritual freedom even under colonial subjugation. He explains, not with complex philosophical terms, but with simple metaphors drawn from nature, from the rhythm of the tides, the strength of an old tree. He speaks of the importance of presence, of living fully in each moment, whether it be mending a net, preparing tea, or simply breathing. He doesn't use the word Zen, but the essence of its teachings flows through his every word, his every gesture. He speaks of emptying the cup to receive new water, of shedding preconceived notions to truly see. This is a different kind of learning, one that emphasizes direct experience over intellectual accumulation. You understand that this master will not simply fill your head with facts. He will guide you in transforming your perception, in cultivating a deeper awareness. The invitation is not just to learn about Zen, but to live Zen, here, in this unexpected colonial setting. As dusk settles, casting long shadows across the temple floor, the old man rises. He lights a fresh stick of incense, its fragrant smoke curling upwards, filling the space with a delicate aroma. He then makes a simple gesture towards the door, signaling the end of this first, profound encounter. You rise, your body feeling lighter, your mind clearer than it has been in days. You have received your invitation, not with fanfare or grand pronouncements, but with quiet dignity and a profound sense of purpose. The journey into Zen, under the guidance of this reclusive master, has truly begun. The invitation from the reclusive master, silent yet resonant, lingers in your mind as you return to the temple the following morning. The familiar cacophony of Manila seems distant now. It sounds a mere backdrop to the quiet anticipation within you. The air inside the temple is cool and still, permeated by the faint, comforting scent of incense. The old master is already seated on his mat, facing the serene Buddha figure, his posture a picture of effortless concentration. You take your place opposite him, settling onto your own mat, feeling a quiet sense of homecoming. This is where you begin your training, a journey not of outward pilgrimage, but of inward discovery. He begins not with words, but with a simple gesture. He raises a hand, palm open, and gently places it over his abdomen, indicating the area just below the navel. Then, he closes his eyes. You understand, this is the starting point, the breath. For centuries, Zen practitioners have anchored their awareness to the breath, recognizing it as the most fundamental and immediate aspect of existence. It is the bridge between the inner and outer worlds, a constant, reliable rhythm that flows without conscious effort. You close your eyes, imitating his posture, and begin to focus on the fundamental principles of mindfulness. At first, your mind races, a whirlwind of thoughts, anxieties, and observations from the colonial world outside. The distant clang of a hammer, the murmur of voices, the incessant drone of insects all vie for your attention. Your own internal monologue is even louder, questioning, analyzing, resisting. This is the initial struggle, the wildness of the untrained mind. But you persevere, gently bringing your awareness back to the breath. Each time it strays, you feel the cool air entering your nostrils, the subtle expansion of your diaphragm, the warm air leaving your body. You notice the pause between the inhale and the exhale, the brief moment of stillness before the next cycle begins. It's a painstaking process, akin to taming a wild horse, patiently guiding it back to the path. The master, without opening his eyes, murmurs, "Just this, just the breath, no judgment, no expectation, only awareness." His voice is soft, yet it cuts through the mental chatter with startling clarity. He is reminding you of the core tenet of mindfulness, to observe without evaluation, to simply witness what is, without grasping or pushing away. This radical acceptance, you realize, is liberating in itself. Days turn into weeks, and your mornings are spent in this quiet, dedicated practice. The initial discomfort of sitting still for extended periods gradually lessens, replaced by a nascent sense of ease. The master introduces other subtle instructions. He speaks of maintaining a straight but relaxed spine, of the importance of an open gaze, even when your eyes are closed, to avoid drowsiness. He emphasizes the integration of practice into daily life, urging you to bring the same quality of attention to every action: walking, eating, drinking tea. He occasionally shares brief stories, parables from ancient China or Japan, that illuminate the path. He speaks of the ordinary mind as the Tao, emphasizing that enlightenment is not a mystical faraway state, but the profound recognition of the sacred in the mundane. He explains that Zen is not about acquiring something new, but about shedding the layers of delusion that obscure what is already inherently present. You learn to observe your thoughts as they arise, like clouds drifting across the sky, without attaching to them or being carried away. You notice emotions as they surge and recede, like waves on the shore, without becoming overwhelmed. This detachment, this spaciousness, is a profound revelation. You begin to understand that you are not your thoughts, nor are you your emotions. You are the awareness that observes them. The physical sensations of your body become clearer. The gentle pressure of the mat beneath you, the warmth of the sun through the temple window, the subtle aches and pains that arise and eventually dissolve. By simply observing them without resistance, you discover a remarkable capacity for acceptance. The colonial era heat, once a source of discomfort, now simply is another sensation to be acknowledged and let go. The master never uses the grand language of enlightenment or spiritual transcendence. His teachings are pragmatic, grounded in the immediate experience of the body and mind. He emphasizes the importance of direct experience over intellectual understanding, encouraging you to taste the tea rather than merely reading about its flavor. This practical, experiential approach is precisely what makes Zen so powerful. One morning, during your sitting practice, a moment of profound stillness descends. The internal chatter ceases entirely. There is only the breath, clear and distinct, and an expansive sense of awareness. You feel utterly present, unburdened by past regrets or future anxieties. It's a fleeting moment, a glimpse into a deeper reality, but it leaves an indelible mark. This, you realize, is the fruit of focusing on the fundamental principles of mindfulness. It's not about achieving anything, but about simply being, fully and completely, in each passing moment. Your training has begun to unlock an inner landscape, a sanctuary that transcends the external world. The rigorous but gentle discipline of your training continues, day after day, within the quiet sanctuary of the hidden temple. The Master's subtle guidance has anchored you firmly in the present moment, teaching you to ride the waves of your breath, to observe the rising and falling of thoughts and emotions without entanglement. And slowly, remarkably, you begin to experience a profound transformation. You find stillness in chaos, an inner peace that seems utterly impervious to the turbulent colonial world outside. The sounds of Manila, once an overwhelming assault on your senses, begin to recede into a background hum. The relentless tolling of church bells, the shouts of vendors, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages, they are still there, but they no longer penetrate the core of your being. You notice them, acknowledge them, and then gently let them go, returning your focus to the quiet rhythm of your own breath. It's as if an invisible shield has formed around your inner space, allowing you to witness the external world without being swept away by its currents. This newfound stillness isn't a form of escapism, however. The Master often emphasizes that Zen is not about retreating from the world, but about engaging with it more fully, with a clear and present mind. You continue to move through the colonial city, to observe the daily interactions, the subtle power dynamics, and the enduring resilience of the local people. But now, your perception is different. You see with a clarity unclouded by internal agitation. You notice the quiet dignity of a laborer toiling under the brutal sun, his movements deliberate, his focus unwavering. You see the unspoken communication between a mother and her child, a bond of love that transcends language and cultural imposition. Even in the presence of the stern Augustinian friars, their faces etched with conviction, you can observe them without judgment, recognizing their humanity alongside their fervent zeal. The inner stillness allows you to perceive the world as it is, stripped of your own projections and biases. The humid air, once a source of constant discomfort, is now simply another sensation to be experienced without resistance. The occasional sharp scent of burning charcoal or sweet jasmine, the taste of simple rice and fish, the rough feel of your homespun robes, all become opportunities for mindful engagement. Each sensory input is simply noted, absorbed, and released, without the mind clinging or pushing away. This radical acceptance of sensory experience deepens your connection to the present moment, anchoring you more firmly in reality. you come to understand that the external chaos of colonial life, the imposition of a foreign religion, the economic exploitation, the constant underlying tension, is a fertile ground for practice. It is precisely amidst such turbulence that the cultivation of inner peace becomes most profound. It is easy to find stillness in a quiet monastery, but to find it in the heart of a bustling, colonized city is a testament to the power of the practice. The very pressures of your environment become teachers, forcing you to delve deeper into your internal resources. The Master, in his sparse words, has taught you that true peace is not the absence of external trouble, but the presence of an unshakable mind. He speaks of the bamboo, bending gracefully in the strongest winds, yielding yet never breaking. You begin to embody this flexibility, this resilience. The mind, like the bamboo, can bend without snapping, maintaining its core integrity even when buffeted by external forces. There are moments when the inner peace is so profound that the external world seems to dissolve. You sit in the temple, and the boundaries between yourself and the surrounding space blur. There is only awareness, vast and boundless. These moments are fleeting, like glimpses through a parting mist, but they offer undeniable proof of the immense potential within. They are experiences of true liberation, a freedom that no colonial power, no political system can ever suppress. The practice becomes a refuge, a sanctuary you carry within yourself, accessible at any moment. Whether walking through the crowded streets, sitting by the bay, or even encountering the watchful eyes of the friars, you can return to the anchor of your breath, to the quiet observation of your mind. This is not indifference to suffering or injustice, but a deep well of strength from which to engage with it more effectively, without being overwhelmed. You are no longer merely a soul adrift in a foreign land. You are becoming a vessel of stillness, a quiet point of calm in the very eye of the storm. The stillness in chaos you now cultivate is not merely personal solace. It is a silent testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a testament that resonates deeply within the vibrant, yet often oppressed, heart of colonial-era Philippines. This inner peace is a quiet revolution, a personal liberation that transcends all external dominion. The inner stillness you've cultivated through your Zen training has become a constant companion, a quiet hum beneath the surface of your awareness. It's a profound shift, transforming your experience of the colonial world from one of overwhelming sensory input to a clearer, more detached observation. But the path of Zen, as the Master subtly conveys, is not meant to be walked in isolation. There is a deep, unspoken need for connection, for shared silence that transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. You notice it first during your daily sittings. While the Master is the primary guide, there are occasionally others present in the hidden temple. Sometimes, it's an old Chinese merchant, his face etched with years of trade, who sits with a profound stillness, his breath almost imperceptible. Other times, it's a local Filipino, perhaps a farmer or a fisherman, who arrives quietly, settles onto a mat, and merges into the shared meditative space. These are not formal gatherings, no introductions are made, no words are exchanged. Yet, a powerful sense of community, of shared purpose, permeates the air. The silence itself becomes the language. In the profound quietude of the temple, with bodies aligned and minds focused on the breath, a deeper connection forms. It's a recognition of shared humanity, a silent acknowledgement of the universal longing for peace and understanding. the external labels, Chinese, Filipino, Spanish, even your own anomalous presence, dissolve in the shared experience of the present moment. Here, under the watchful gaze of the serene Buddha, you are simply beings, together, on a path of quiet introspection. You find this sense of connection extending beyond the temple walls. One morning, while fetching water from a communal well, you encounter the old Chinese merchant you've seen in meditation. He offers you a small, ripe mango. There's no expectation, no conversation beyond a brief, polite nod. But in the simple gesture, in the silent exchange of the fruit, you feel a profound sense of recognition, a shared understanding that needs no words. It's a connection forged in the crucible of shared stillness, a silent bond that bypasses the complexities of colonial interaction. Similarly, you might pass a local Filipino on the street, perhaps one you've glimpsed in the temple. A fleeting glance, a subtle shift in posture, and you sense a kindred spirit. Someone who also carries the quiet strength of inner peace amidst the external turmoil. This silent acknowledgement creates small, invisible networks of understanding throughout the city. Subtle currents of shared spiritual practice flowing beneath the dominant narrative of colonial power. This shared silence is particularly poignant in the context of colonial-era Philippines, where language, religion, and ethnicity are often used to divide and control. The practice of meditation offers a unifying force. It strips away the superficial differences and reveals the underlying commonality of human experience. The very act of connecting with others, both local and foreign, through the shared experience of meditation, becomes a quiet act of rebellion, a dismantling of imposed barriers from within. The Master, though he rarely speaks of these connections directly, embodies them. His temple is open to all who seek genuine stillness, regardless of their background. He cultivates an atmosphere where the external world, with its divisions and hierarchies, is gently set aside. In his presence, you learn that compassion arises naturally from a spacious mind, and that true connection is found not in grand declarations, but in the quiet recognition of shared awareness. Sometimes, after a long sitting session, the Master might prepare tea. The ritual of making and serving tea is another opportunity for shared silence and connection. Each movement is precise, deliberate, infused with mindfulness. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the delicate aroma of the tea, the simple act of drinking together, it all becomes a form of unspoken communication, a deep communion that transcends the need for words. In these moments, you realize that shared silence is not empty, but full, brimming with presence and understanding. This quiet camaraderie is a powerful antidote to the isolation that can often accompany a spiritual path, especially one pursued in secrecy. It reinforces the idea that you are not alone, that there are others, hidden in plain sight, who are also cultivating an inner sanctuary, building bridges of understanding through shared stillness. It is a testament to the universal appeal of Zen, its capacity to resonate with individuals from diverse backgrounds, drawing them together in a common pursuit of truth and inner peace. As the weeks turn into months, the bonds forged in shared silence become stronger, more profound. You learn that genuine connection is not always loud or overt. Sometimes, it is the most profound when it is quiet, when it unfolds in the sacred space of unspoken understanding, connecting hearts and minds through the simple, yet transformative, power of shared presence. The quiet rhythm of your Zen practice continues, deepening your internal peace and forging unspoken bonds with those who share the hidden temple's sanctuary. This newfound stillness, however, has an unexpected consequence. It begins to draw attention, a subtle curiosity from the very forces that seek to suppress such spiritual autonomy. One particular afternoon, as you walk through the bustling plaza, you notice a figure whose demeanor is distinctly different from the other friars. He moves with a less rigid gait, his gaze more contemplative than condemning. This is where you first attract the attention of a curious Jesuit, an encounter that will prompt an intriguing interfaith dialogue. He is Father Matteo. You learn later from hushed whispers among the local community. Unlike the Augustinians, whose mission often focused on outward conversion and strict doctrinal adherence, the Jesuits were renowned for their intellectual rigor, their adaptability, and their deep engagement with local cultures in other parts of the world. Here, in the Philippines, their presence was still relatively new, and while they too sought to spread the Catholic faith, their approach was often more nuanced, more open to understanding the philosophies of the peoples they encountered. You first sense his gaze on you as you pause by a small fountain, watching the light play on the water. It's not the sharp, scrutinizing look of a friar searching for heresy, but a prolonged, thoughtful observation. When your eyes meet, he doesn't immediately avert his gaze or offer a stern blessing. Instead, a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even recognition, passes across his face. He offers a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of quiet acknowledgement rather than overt challenge. Days later, you find him in the library of the Jesuit Collegio, a more modest but intellectually vibrant institution compared to the grand Augustinian monasteries. He is poring over a large, leather-bound volume, his brow furrowed in concentration. You are drawn to the quiet atmosphere of the library, the scent of old paper, and ink a welcome respite from the humid air. He looks up as you enter, and this time he offers a gentle smile. "Forgive my intrusion," he says, his Spanish clear and precise, with a softer cadence than you've heard from other friars. "But I have observed you. There is a composure about you that is unusual in these bustling times." He pauses, his eyes searching yours. You seem to carry a stillness. His directness takes you by surprise, but you respond with a simple, respectful nod. You realize this is the opening, the opportunity for the interfaith dialogue that Zen's subtle influence seems destined to initiate. He invites you to sit, gesturing to a nearby wooden chair. He begins to speak of his own studies, of the vast philosophical and theological traditions of Europe. He mentions the Desert Fathers, the Christian mystics who sought spiritual union through contemplation and solitude. He speaks of St. John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Avila, their intense inner journeys and their pursuit of God through profound meditative states. It's clear that Father Matteo possesses an intellect eager to grasp universal truths, rather than merely enforce rigid dogma. Then, gently, he broaches the subject of your own inner practices. "I sense in you," he says, "discipline that is akin to the contemplative paths we know. Yet it feels different, less about prayer, perhaps, and more about observation, less about reaching God, and more about simply being." He is articulating, without knowing the specific terminology, the very essence of Zen. You choose your words carefully, knowing the delicate nature of the conversation. You speak not of Buddhism or Zen directly, but of the practice of sitting, of focusing on the breath. of observing thoughts without attachment. You describe the experience of radical presence, of finding profound peace in the midst of everyday life, of the interconnectedness of all things. You describe it as a path of direct experience, a way to cultivate clarity and compassion. Father Matteo listens intently, his expression thoughtful. He asks incisive questions, probing deeper into the nature of emptiness, of non-duality, of the concept of satori, though you use a more accessible term like sudden awakening or clear seeing. He notes the parallels between the cessation of mental chatter in your practice and the concept of apophatic theology in Christianity, where God is defined by what he is not, moving beyond concepts and images. He points out the similarity between Zen's emphasis on the present moment and Christ's teaching to consider the lilies of the field. He is genuinely fascinated, not seeking to convert you, but to understand. His intellectual curiosity outweighs any immediate doctrinal objections. He sees not a rival faith, but a different pathway to profound spiritual experience, one that shares common ground with the contemplative heart of his own tradition. This dialogue is remarkable in a colonial setting where religious hegemony is the norm. It highlights the potential for understanding and mutual respect, even across seemingly insurmountable cultural and religious divides. The very fact that a curious Jesuit is willing to engage in such an open, non-judgmental exchange is a testament to his unique character and the inherent universality of deep spiritual practice. Through this unexpected conversation, the seeds of East and West begin to find a subtle, shared ground, far from the watchful eyes of the broader colonial establishment. The seeds of curiosity planted by Father Matteo continue to blossom, transforming the quiet academic exchanges into a profound exploration of East meets West. His genuine intellectual hunger, far from being a tactical maneuver, reveals a spirit open to universal truth, even if they arrive in unfamiliar packaging. You find yourselves meeting more frequently in the hushed confines of the Jesuit library. The dusty scent of old books a comforting backdrop to your increasingly daring conversations. Father Matteo, having devoured the vague descriptions you've given him of Zen practice, begins to draw startling parallels to his own Christian contemplative tradition. He speaks of the Desert Fathers, early Christian hermits who sought God through extreme asceticism and prolonged periods of silent prayer in the Egyptian deserts. He recounts their pursuit of hesychia, a state of inner stillness and quietude, strikingly similar to the Zen concept of shikantaza, or just sitting. You discuss how both traditions emphasize a stripping away of external distractions and internal chatter to arrive at a deeper, more immediate experience of truth, whether that truth is understood as God or as one's own inherent Buddha nature. He introduces you to the writings of Christian mystics like Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross, whose profound experiences of union with the divine often involved states of intense inner silence and a transcendence of conceptual thought. You find striking resonance in their descriptions of the dark night of the soul, a period of spiritual desolation and emptiness, with Zen's emphasis on the dissolution of the ego and the experience of sunyata, or emptiness, not as a void, but as the ground of all being. He marvels at the idea that one could reach God, not through fervent prayer or intellectual assent, but through a profound emptying of the self. You, in turn, explain how Zen views the self not as a fixed, independent entity, but as a fluid, interconnected process. You speak of the non-dual nature of reality, where subject and object, self and other, ultimately merge. Father Matteo, initially challenged by this concept, finds a surprising echo in the Christian idea of the Trinity, where distinct persons are nevertheless one God, and in the mystical union where the individual soul is said to become one with God. He reflects on how Christ's teachings, such as "the kingdom of God is within you," resonate with Zen's insistence that enlightenment is not found outside oneself, but realized through direct experience. The conversations are not about conversion, but about exploration. There's a palpable excitement in discovering these shared contemplative currents, these universal threads that weave through seemingly disparate spiritual traditions. You discuss the importance of the master-disciple relationship in Zen and the role of spiritual directors in Christian mysticism. You compare the role of koans in Zen, designed to break through intellectual frameworks, with the paradoxes and incomprehensible aspects of divine mystery that mystics often encounter. He is particularly intrigued by the Zen emphasis on everyday life as the arena for practice. "You mean," he ponders, "that one does not need to retreat to a monastery to find truth, but can find it in the act of sweeping a floor or preparing a meal?" You confirm that for Zen, every moment is an opportunity for awakening, every action a chance to embody mindfulness. This practical, embodied approach resonates with his own desire to make faith more immediately accessible to the common person, beyond mere ritual and dogma. This interfaith dialogue unfolds in the quiet solitude of the library, far from the critical eyes of the rigid Augustinians who would view such discussions as dangerous heresy. Father Matteo, with his intellectual curiosity and genuine spiritual depth, acts as a crucial bridge, allowing Zen teachings to find a surprising point of contact within the very heart of the colonial power structure. He sees not a threat, but a profound spiritual resource, a different way of experiencing the divine that complements, rather than contradicts, the deepest contemplative aspects of his own faith. These sessions are not just theoretical. They deepen your own understanding of Zen as well, by articulating the concepts in a way that Father Matteo, a man of profound Christian faith, can understand. You gain new insights into the universal applicability of these teachings. You see how the essence of Zen transcends cultural and historical contexts, resonating with the deepest human yearnings for peace, clarity, and meaning, regardless of the specific spiritual language used to express them. In these profound conversations, you realize that the boundaries between East meets West are not as rigid as they appear, especially when viewed through the lens of genuine contemplative practice. The interfaith dialogue with Father Matteo, while intellectually stimulating and personally enriching, remains a private, clandestine affair. Outside the quiet library walls, the realities of colonial rule press in with undiminished weight. The omnipresent authority of the Spanish, the economic hardships faced by the indigenous population, the subtle and overt forms of oppression. These are the tangible facts of daily life. Yet, as your Zen practice deepens, you begin to perceive how these teachings offer a unique form of resistance and resilience, a quiet strength that transcends mere political defiance. You observe the indigenous Filipinos, many of whom have now quietly incorporated elements of the new faith while retaining their own spiritual practices. Their resilience is remarkable. They find ways to survive, to endure, to maintain their cultural identity despite the overwhelming forces seeking to erase it. This isn't a loud, aggressive rebellion, it's a quiet, persistent existence. You see it in the way they continue to cultivate their ancestral lands, in the stories they whisper to their children, in the quiet dignity with which they carry themselves. Your Zen training, with its emphasis on mindfulness and non-attachment, provides a powerful lens through which to understand this resilience. The practice of simply being with what is, without judgment or resistance, paradoxically cultivates an inner freedom. When you are not constantly reacting to external circumstances, when your mind is not caught in the endless cycle of desire and aversion, you become less susceptible to external control. The colonizers can control the land, the economy, even the visible aspects of spiritual life, but they cannot control the inner landscape of a mind at peace. The Master, in his sparse teachings, often speaks of finding stillness amidst turmoil. He doesn't advocate for outright rebellion against the Spanish, understanding the futility and danger of such an act. Instead, he teaches a more profound form of liberation, freedom from the internal chains of fear, anger, and attachment. This quiet strength is not passive resignation. It is an active cultivation of inner fortitude. It's the strength of the bamboo, bending in the storm, but never breaking, deeply rooted and flexible. You begin to recognize this strength in the daily lives of the people around you. The seemingly passive acceptance of harsh conditions often masks an incredible inner fortitude. A farmer, whose harvest has been seized by the Spanish, might return to his field the next day with the same quiet determination, replanting with a mind unburdened by resentment, focusing only on the task at hand. This is Zen in action, a manifestation of living fully in the present moment rather than being consumed by past injustices or future anxieties. The practice of mindfulness teaches that suffering arises not just from external events, but from our reaction to them. By cultivating a spacious awareness that can observe suffering without being engulfed by it, individuals can reclaim a profound sense of agency. This is a subtle but potent form of resistance. It's the resistance of the spirit, refusing to be conquered even when the body is subjugated. In the hidden temple, you sit in shared silence with individuals who, like you, seek this inner freedom. You realize that for them, this practice is not an abstract spiritual pursuit, but a vital tool for survival. It provides a sanctuary where they can reconnect with their true selves, unburdened by the imposed identities and limitations of colonial society. It's a space where their inherent worth and dignity can be affirmed simply by virtue of their being. The emphasis on interconnectedness in Zen also fosters a sense of solidarity. When you realize that all beings are fundamentally interconnected, that the suffering of one is the suffering of all, compassion naturally arises. This compassion, far from being a weakness, becomes a powerful motivator for subtle acts of mutual support, of quiet defiance against injustice. It strengthens the bonds within the community, reinforcing their collective resilience. You observe the subtle ways this inner strength manifests in acts of quiet kindness, in shared burdens, in the refusal to fully internalize the oppressor's narrative. It's a spiritual anchor in a tempestuous sea. The Zen teachings provide a framework for enduring hardship with grace, for finding meaning and purpose even when external circumstances are bleak. They offer a path to inner liberation that no external power can revoke. The Spanish may control the physical land and the visible institutions, but the quiet, inner resistance of the spirit, cultivated through mindfulness and presence, remains beyond their grasp. This is the profound lesson of Zen in the colonial Philippines, not to fight the external storm with violence, but to find the unshakable center within, and from that center, to cultivate a quiet yet powerful form of endurance that ultimately leads to true freedom. The quiet strength gleaned from your Zen practice and observed in the resilience of the indigenous people profoundly reshapes your understanding of this colonial landscape. The days continue to flow, marked by the internal rhythm of your breath more than the external tolling of bells. You begin to witness the legacies unfolding, seeing how these subtle, often hidden, teachings leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of life in the colonial Philippines. This legacy isn't built on grand monuments or public declarations. Instead, it manifests in the quiet details, in the small, everyday choices that reflect an inner peace and a deep connection to the present moment. You see it in the craftsmanship of a carpenter, whose hands move with a deliberate precision, each stroke of his chisel an act of mindful creation. The furniture he produces isn't just functional, it carries a subtle aesthetic of simplicity and balance, reflecting the quiet discipline of his mind. You observe it in the way food is prepared in local households. The meticulous cleaning of rice, the precise chopping of vegetables, the slow simmering of stews. These are not just chores but meditative acts, performed with a presence that transforms the mundane into the sacred. The meals, though simple, nourish not just the body, but also the spirit, imbued with the mindful energy of their preparation. This integration of practice into daily life, a core tenet of Zen, becomes a living demonstration of the teaching's enduring power. The very concept of time seems to shift for many who embody these practices. In a colonial system that often demands constant productivity and adherence to external schedules, there's a quiet resistance in the embrace of being overdoing. The ability to pause, to simply be present, to find stillness amidst the demands of the day, is a profound act of reclaiming personal autonomy. This inner freedom, fostered by Zen, subtly undermines the external control, creating a legacy of quiet self-possession. You notice how the shared silence and subtle understandings cultivated in the hidden temple begin to ripple outwards, influencing broader interactions. There's a particular kind of calm that some individuals carry, a measured response to provocation, a patient endurance in the face of injustice. This isn't weakness, it's a profound strength born of non-reaction, an ability to observe difficult situations without being consumed by anger or despair. This equanimity, a hallmark of Zen, becomes a valuable tool for navigating the often harsh realities of colonial life. The Jesuit, Father Mateo, continues his quiet inquiries, his mind a fertile ground for the cross-pollination of ideas. While he cannot openly preach Zen, his own sermons begin to subtly reflect a deeper contemplative understanding. He might speak more of the silence of God, of finding the divine within, of the importance of inner purity over outward show. This intellectual and spiritual exchange, though confined to a small circle, is a vital part of the legacy's unfolding, ensuring that these Eastern insights find a voice, however nuanced, within the Western tradition itself. The hidden temple itself becomes a testament to this enduring legacy. Despite the constant threat of discovery, it persists a quiet beacon of spiritual freedom. New seekers, drawn by wordless reputation or an intuitive sense of its purpose, continue to find their way to its secluded clearing. The master, now more frail, continues to guide, his presence a living link to centuries of wisdom. He embodies the quiet continuation of a lineage that refuses to be extinguished by external forces. This is the subtle, pervasive impact of Zen on the colonial landscape. It's not about grand movements or public figures, but about the transformation of individual lives from the inside out. It's about finding inner peace in the face of external turmoil, cultivating resilience through mindfulness, and fostering genuine connection through shared silence. This quiet internal revolution, fueled by ancient Eastern wisdom, demonstrates that true liberation is not merely political, it is spiritual, an enduring flame that burns brightly even in the darkest of times. The legacy, you realize, is not just in the teachings themselves, but in the quiet, profound lives shaped by them, influencing the world one mindful breath at a time. The journey has brought you full circle. From the initial shock of awakening in a colonial-era Manila to the deep, abiding peace found within the hidden temple. The intricate dance of cultures, the imposition of foreign rule, and the quiet resilience of the indigenous spirit have all shaped your experience. Now, as your time in this historical tapestry draws to a close, you come to a profound realization. The ultimate destination is not a place, nor a set of doctrines, but an inner horizon, a boundless expanse of awareness found only within yourself. The Master, frail yet luminous, offers no final pronouncements, no grand farewells. His teachings have always been about direct experience, about the path itself, not about the destination as a fixed point. He simply sits, his presence a living embodiment of the liberation he imparts. And in that shared silence, you understand that the true work, the true freedom, is an ongoing cultivation, a continuous return to the present moment. You recall the initial discomfort of your untrained mind, the clamor of external noise and internal chatter. Through the consistent discipline of focusing on the breath, of observing thoughts and emotions without attachment, you've discovered a vast reservoir of stillness. This stillness isn't a void. It's a fertile ground from which clarity, compassion, and genuine connection arise. It's a testament to the fact that while external circumstances can exert immense pressure, they cannot touch the core of your being if you remain anchored in awareness. The colonial power, with its grand architecture, its pervasive religious institutions, and its economic might, sought to impose its will, to control not just the land, but also the hearts and minds of the people. Yet, you have witnessed how the quiet strength of Zen offers a different kind of sovereignty. It demonstrates that true liberation transcends any external dominion. It's a freedom that is not granted by rulers or won through battles, but realized through an internal awakening. You carry with you the image of the old woman mending her net, absorbed in a timeless present. The young boy meticulously arranging his fruit, his small hands imbued with profound care. These were glimpses of Zen in the ordinary, everyday moments of life, proving that spiritual depth is not confined to sacred spaces, but can permeate every action, every breath. This realization profoundly alters your perception of the world, showing you that the sacred is not separate from the profane, it is revealed within it. The subtle interfaith dialogue with Father Mateo lingers as well. His sincere curiosity and intellectual humility underscored the universal resonance of contemplative practices. It highlighted that beneath the surface of diverse traditions, there is a shared human longing for meaning, for connection, for a deeper understanding of reality. This meeting of East and West, even in a private, clandestine manner, represents the potential for unity, for finding common ground through shared experience rather than doctrinal adherence. As you prepare to leave this extraordinary time and place, you understand that the colonial-era Philippines was not just a historical setting for your journey. It was the crucible, the very conditions that forged a deeper understanding of Zen's practical power. The challenges, the tensions, the daily struggles, these were the grist for the mill of practice, forcing you to delve deeper, to truly embody the teachings, rather than merely intellectualize them. Your inner horizon has expanded immeasurably. You no longer seek a specific path, but rather recognize the path in every moment, in every breath. The journey is not about arriving at a fixed destination, but about the continuous unfolding of awareness, the perpetual discovery of the boundless nature of the present moment. The temple is no longer just a secluded building, but a state of mind, a sanctuary that you carry within you, accessible wherever you are, whatever the circumstances. The understanding that true freedom is found within yourself is the most profound realization of all. It is a liberation from the constructs of the mind, from the tyranny of external validation, from the illusion of separation. This inner freedom is unassailable, a quiet revolution that transcends all empires, all doctrines, and all forms of control. It is the timeless legacy of Zen, whispered across centuries and cultures, now deeply woven into the fabric of your own being. The humid air of the colonial Philippines begins to thin. The sounds of the bustling Parian, the clang of church bells, the distant murmur of the bay, all fading into a soft, indistinct hum. The vibrant colors of silk and nipper huts, the stern faces of friars, the quiet dignity of the locals, they shimmer, grow translucent, and then dissolve. You feel a gentle pull, a sensation not unlike waking from a vivid dream, but one that leaves an indelible mark on your waking self. The wisdom of the reclusive master, the stillness found in chaos, the profound interfaith dialogue, the quiet resilience of a colonized people, these are no longer mere historical anecdotes, but deeply embodied experiences. You are returning, yet you are changed. The subtle currents of Zen from a distant era have flowed into your own present, transforming your inner landscape. The horizon is still vast, but now you know its true expanse lies within. The journey truly begins now.